Good.
Hello, everybody.
How is everybody today? I hope everybody is staying nice and warm and dry. So I appreciate everybody coming on today. I just have a couple of housekeeping rules before I switch this over to Crystal. My name is Melinda Rao, and I'm a training and outreach specialist with Military Spouse Jobs and VetJobs. My role here is to be in the background and make sure the technology runs smoothly, and I'm going to turn it over to Crystal in a second. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We do have a chat box, and I see you guys using it. Yay! If you have any questions, any comments throughout the presentation, I will be monitoring the chat box and making sure I cue Crystal for any questions. And the other thing is, this session is being recorded, and we do that on purpose so that we can share this information out far and wide. So in a couple of days after this presentation, I will be loading this recording onto our YouTube channel. Did you know we have a YouTube channel? And we will be able to share this recording out across your networks far and wide so that as many people get this information as possible. Now it's time for me to turn my camera off and turn it over to Crystal. It's all yours.
Thank you, Melinda. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad each of you made this a priority, because the reality is, if you don't make yourself a priority, no one else is going to. And so thank you for showing up. I am going to make sure that you get to see my presentation, and I get to navigate it in a way that I can see you and move things through. So if you can see it, Melinda, give me a yes, and we will move through this presentation. All right. So if everything is good to go, you have showed up to the Own Your Journey, Learn to Tell Your Story Well presentation. This is a collaborative effort between the Veteran Readiness and Employment teams, particularly Nick at the Pittsburgh office, and a number of his other partners get access to this as well. And then us here at Military Spouse Jobs and VetJobs. Now, my particular role is with the Western PA program. So we're called the Pittsburgh program. I get a career specialist, Miss Heather, and I get a recruiter connect, which is Miss Nicole. What does that mean? That means between all of us, we have resources, we have training, we have one-on-one support, we have relationships with employers. And that means more likelihood of success and growth in your journey than you would have ever seen just going it alone. Because you got to step in, but we get to lock arms beside you. And we know the importance of teamwork as we move forward. You've met Melinda. Huge thank you. None of us would be here and get to enjoy this platform without her. So I greatly appreciate her being here. And I don't know if there's emojis in the chat, but if you could give her a clap and a hooray and a thank you, she needs it, because she's here supporting us for your success. We have a few rules of engagement. First and foremost, if you get nothing else, engage with this content. This is not me teaching you to put it in a little file folder in your head and store for later. This is me teaching you so that we can unpack it on a piece of paper. So if you don't have a notebook in hand, if you don't have a pen, or if you're like my new toy, I have an e-tablet where you're writing on it, fantastic. Completely different subject, but we're engaging with this content. This is an interactive workshop. Melinda's going to jump in. She's going to interrupt me if you have questions related to the stuff that I'm presenting. If we have personalized questions on what this means for how you would write this out or how you would do this, I have time at the end for you. So please do not panic. We want to make sure that you're getting the questions answered, and you're also getting connected with the folks on Nick's team, on my team, with Melinda's other amazing trainings, so that you're moving forward with your goal. Second, unique stories. We're going to talk about the fact that we're not in competition with one another. Trust me when I say this. If we have 2 people in the IT field, if we have multiple administrative folks, if there's supply folks, wherever you find yourself, you are not in competition with anyone in this room. It is about your story, your journey, and being able to say that well, write that well, present that well to the people you encounter in your life. No one else is standing next to you saying, "No, I did it better. No, but I have this training." The only time that happens is when you let them into your headspace. Don't worry about them. Your story is what you need to do well. And this is a great start. This is the baseline, whether you're a senior level position now looking for your next promotion or you're trying to pivot, or you're an entry level industry and trying to get a job or into a field. This is the place you go because you're going to apply this information across the board. The reason I walk you through this, and I did a pivot. I was a licensed counselor and I stepped into this field of HR, career readiness, the vet space in general. If you're a spouse, you know military culture is its own beast. If you're a veteran, you know there's all sorts of personalities out there from those who have served. If you're currently serving as a guard or a reservist, trust me, you have your own cultural norms. But the reality is there's some common overlap. And I will never forget this story because I hear it over and over again in different forms. I had just stepped through, it was about 5 years ago, and I'm doing a workshop at one of the vet centers. And we're talking about the need to target your resume and how to not just say, well, I blew stuff up. What do you want me to tell them I did? How does that have anything to do with cyber? How does that have anything to do with manufacturing? We're having all these great conversations about career readiness and the types of help and services you're going to engage with. And this guy was like, look, I served and promoted quickly for about 6 years doing supply and logistics. I was able to work on the people side, on the paperwork side, on the procurement side, on the tracking side. Like, I understand what this is, but I've applied to hundreds of supply positions and I'm not even getting an interview. I've done work as a barista. I've done work cleaning hospital rooms and picking up the trash. But why can't I get a supply job? And at this point, he's fed up because how many of us wouldn't be fed up with the fact that we know we have skills, we know we have experience, we know the journey we've walked, and not one person will give us a phone screen because we're not telling our story well. As I'm listening to him tell, I said, when you were a barista at this coffee shop, did you happen to help the team in any extra ways that the other folks weren't? Oh, yeah. Well, they had me like at the end of the week and the end of the shifts, count up our stuff, put in the order, track some of that. I had some keys to refill certain stations. And no one else had that. No. What about at the hospital? How was that? Was there any extra duties that maybe you helped the team out with or you were able to do that was unique from someone else that might be hired on? Oh, yeah, I was able to go and I was in charge of getting all the carts loaded up and going into certain places to restock and this, that, and the other. So I paused a minute and I said, so they've been paying you to be an entry level, insert the blank, but really you've been their supply person as a collateral duty and not getting paid for it. His mouth and everyone in the workshop mouth drop like, oh, you're right. How dare they? We didn't tell our story well. We got stuck in a place. I don't want to tell you that yet. I want to tell you about this game before we go into this slide. So they're all shocked and they're like, what is going on? Like, why can't we get in this place? Well, it's because we may be making common mistakes that lead us into this entry level rut that we can't seem to find ourselves. I don't know how many of you have played the Never Have I Ever game, but essentially what it is when you're with a group of people, you say, never have I ever insert embarrassing moment. Never have I ever insert life life struggle or mistake or whatever. Well, this is a never have I ever, and all of the common mistakes I see over and over again. And I just want to go through a few of them. Not because there's something wrong with you, not because you're failing, don't let any of the insecurity, self-doubt, frustration, perfectionism kick you in the pants right now when I turn this slide. This is because many of us are struggling with this, and we're going to address it in the following slides. So if you hear me, nod your virtual head, because I can't see you. I can see my slides. And know that never have I ever, many of us are raising our hand for multiple of these. And I couldn't resist the graphic, because who doesn't want to be caught doing something embarrassing and be called out on it? So never have I ever been asked what I did in the military and named my rank and my MOS, or rate as we call it in the Navy. We all do it. But if you say, hey, what did you do in the Navy? And I'm like, I was a petty officer second class. I was a cryptologic technician administrative. Yeah, not everybody knows what those words mean. Even people who were in the Navy don't know what those words mean sometimes. One, because that job is now gone and called something else. Two, everyone's rank systems are called something different, and everyone's jobs are called something different. So whether you're in a room packed with military people or military families, or you're in a room mixed with civilians and prior military and current military, don't answer the question, what did you do in the military, with a rank and your job title. We'll work on this. But that's one of the things that often creates division between people and stops the conversation in its tracks. We miss out on some really great things. Never have I ever answered the question, well, what would you like to do, from a hiring person, with, I can do anything. Do you know why we do this? Because when we went to boot camp, when we signed on as military spouses, we basically said, tell me what needs to be done, I'll figure it out. We basically ended up in situations where we were the only one to make the decision, and we made things happen. We have a level of tenacity that either by survival or stubbornness, we know I can make anything happen. And we move forward with it. We run with it. But more often than not, conversations are a two-way street. Someone else is speaking from an internal, maybe articulated or hidden agenda, and we are speaking from an either articulated or hidden agenda. Two people are coming together, and when someone's saying, what would you like to do? Whatever their agenda is none of our business if they haven't told us, nor does it matter. But immediately throwing a I can do anything sort of opens up the conversation so wide that it just fizzles out. There's no strength to it. So we get stuck. Here's never have I ever attended a job fair or a networking event and walked up to someone in the HR department or even one of the owners of a company and said, are you hiring? Do you have availabilities? Do you know someone who? Yes, that is the general point, is to achieve knowledge about roles. But my rule of thumb is, if you're walking into a place and you know some of the attendees who are going to be there, maybe do a 90-second Google search on each to answer some of these questions ahead of time, so that the questions that we ask have some substance. How long have you been at this company? What makes you stay? What is it that you like about the different teams that you've seen work together? Are there things you would have me watch out for if I ever chose to look into this company further? How different are those questions? But many of us have walked through number 3 with flying colors multiple times on multiple occasions, with resumes in hand, ready to conquer the world. I only say that because we've all done it. Again, we're being caught in the places that we get stuck, and I want to highlight them before we start walking forward, because I don't want you to have an image in your head to keep doing. We're breaking the mold and we're owning your unique value, your journey story for the place you want to go so that people can understand it well. What about getting lost in our military stories? It is heartwarming to find a fellow spouse whose person went on a deployment at the same time, and really hearing out what they've gone through and how they made it for that length of time, and knowing common families and those kind of things. It is amazing to know someone else understands the nuances of some ridiculous base you were stationed on and why it was special or absolutely just a catastrophe, and you made it through. You both survived the same experience. The struggle is when we begin to dive into that immediately and we're in a mixed group of folks, no one else knows what's going on. And if we're not sharing our story in a way where we're inviting people in to understand that experience, we're creating separation and losing some of those doors that could have been open. We're essentially holding them shut and making sure everyone's stuck in this conversation they feel slightly awkward in, or they're not even sure if they can ask the questions they want to know about. So invite folks into the story rather than getting lost in the common experience. Take that to a more intimate relationship building experience later or at another time. And never have I ever gotten frustrated at those companies who claim to be military friendly, and once you get hired, realize military ready does not equal military friendly. They don't know how to walk us through assimilation into their culture, promotion pathways, managing styles. We just miss out. So never have I ever probably done all 5 of these things. And maybe there's some there for you that stick out a little bit more than others. The truth is, we've all done this and more. But when we tell our story well, we get to drive the narrative. We get to create a space that not only highlights the skills we've learned, the value we add, but how it relates to whatever that person or group we're talking to's goal is. They have a need. And we want to connect our worth and their need very, very clearly. Most people start out with a resume. How many of you have a master resume? Maybe you have a couple targeted resumes. If you have a federal resume and a corporate resume, if all of these categories don't make sense, this is the time where Melinda has training available, and she's going to walk you through the difference between all of these. They're pre-recorded and live. However, regardless of the resume type or quality that you have, most of us start with some document. We won't even call it a resume. We'll call it a document that tracks our timeline. When did we graduate high school? When did we go to the military? What schools we've attended and degrees or certifications have we earned? What types of jobs have we held? At what companies? During what time frames? Many of us still use the format on the top where it's like driven leader, adapt at conflict resolution, and able to adaptable. I mean, I see that everywhere. The reality is tracking these things is a great idea. We want to kind of have a database of what it is that we've done, when we've done it, maybe some of the volunteer roles. I know that one of the most valuable things that I learned was people making me do volunteer work while I was still in the military. Not only did I have my scheduled shift that I had to report for duty, but there were other things I was being told I needed to do so that I could promote. I'm glad they told me that, because not only did it help me promote quickly in a short amount of time, but I learned so much. I'm able to tell my baby how many times I volunteered at the Pro Bowl and got to meet mascots and football players and see the Blue Angels fly over and do all of these crazy things because I stepped out of my comfort zone. But I also saw what it was like to run large-scale events that engage the community and certain organizations. I learn things that I wouldn't necessarily learn in my work roles, but it allows my brain to sort of open up and say, I get the agendas. I see what's happening. There are things that you do in your life or trainings that you've gone through that change everything. Locally here in Pittsburgh, we partner with a group called Onward to Opportunity. They have a local office, they have a person on the ground. It's not just virtual or like as the base hosts them. They're here and they're interactive. And I thought, I'll test them out because they're another group. It was a training opportunity that I thought, okay, which one will work best? Program management, fantastic. Everybody tells me I was in the military, I'm a program manager, I want 6 figures. It's a really great statement to declare. However, what I learned in that training was that there are those who have done program and project management for the last 20 years in their civilian and military roles. And there are those who are trained program managers. Their language, their conduct, their processes are different. Now, when someone calls me up and tells them I'm a program manager, you better believe I hear the difference between the language they use and the experience they've had because they talk about it differently. Their training was a game changer because they can step into any company at any industry and use the same language rather than saying, I've done this in this industry, therefore I'm an asset to this need. It changes everything. So tracking this and figuring out where are those game-changing moments that have put us into a deeper understanding of our skills and expertise. This is just a list. This is objective data that we see changes, we see accomplishments, and ideally we're quantifying them, and we'll get to that in a minute. But sometimes we've had other priorities. One of the recent examples, we just had a woman, she had multiple degrees, multiple master degrees. She was an officer in the military, and then she became a military spouse, and she took 14 years off of work because her military experience has ended. She was primary military spouse, and oh, by the way, she had 5 kids in those 14 years. She hadn't worked, and now she's engaging with the Onward to Opportunity program as a partner of VetJobs and getting her language right, figuring out what is it that I want to do and how can I do this work while still raising my kids. The youngest is going off to kindergarten in the fall, and she wanted to find a work schedule, a work environment that she could do while still prioritizing her family. Because her husband is still serving, her babies are still growing, but she wanted to contribute to the family. So she was able to clearly tell me, I'm educated, I'm willing to learn, I need these things. I don't know what to do because I haven't worked, so I feel like I have no experience to offer. When we were able to identify, she has been running around and managing the schedule of 4 out of her 5 kiddos on sports schedules. If any of you are parents, you know that is absolutely insanity in itself as its own job. Not only that, she was the member of multiple boards. She was helping in the communities she was stationed make an impact for those communities while raising babies and getting them involved and creating. She endured different deployments. What skills and resiliency does that bring into the picture? As we started to navigate how her training, her education, her roles in volunteer, her parenting and managing a household came together, she was able to create a narrative on the priorities she had during this 14-year work break, which turned out it wasn't really a work break to begin with. She just wasn't getting paid for it. And what that means to a future employer. Long story short, in a period of a couple of months, she not only was hired, but they sort of laughed at the salary she wanted and offered her significantly more because they realized that what she could do for the company fit well within their budget, and they were able to bring that together. And so finding common themes that are repeating back here on this list. So you're building out this list. If you didn't write these 6 categories down, I want you to write these down on that piece of paper I talked about. I want you to sort of take some notes on, hey, I did this. Hey, I did this. Hey, I was called to do this, and I actually kind of like that. Let me make sure I remember that. Because you may have to unpack it a little more than you thought you would. And as you're building this list out, as you're looking at this timeline of your life, the skills, the roles, the achievements, you're figuring out, how often does it come up? What types of industry do you typically gravitate towards, or typically gravitate towards you? Is this something you want to continue? Maybe this is something to consider. What about the role attributes? The story I told with the guy who was in supply but kept getting these unpaid collateral duties, someone is seeing an attribute of him that they were picking up on and taking advantage of to their own benefit. That's a great business move. If someone's willing to take entry-level pay for a much higher, more intricate level, like finance involved position, by all means, as a business, that's a great move. As someone who's getting taken advantage of, that blows. Let's do better. So when you think about these trends, these themes that are coming up, are there things people typically gravitate to you as the expert for? Maybe you do really well with filing and detail management. Maybe you do really well at creating a solution to a barrier. Maybe you're typically the tech person who is like, oh yeah, I know all that stuff. I do this for fun. Whatever it is, there may be certain roles that people gravitate towards you for that you enjoy doing, that you would like to identify that common theme in your story. You're going to pull that from that list and put that over here as one of the possible themes to be able to perpetuate in your story. What about your promotion path? How often are you getting promoted? Are you used to a speedy sort of rhythm, or does it take time? Does it feel like you've got to try, you don't make it, you adjust course, and then you try again, and then you get it? What does your promotion path look like? Because we get in a certain rhythm when we're serving, no matter how long we've served, and we assume it's going to be the same in the civilian sector. That may or may not be the case, depending on the company, the industry, the budget, your performance, your willingness to change, adapt, learn, get trained, all of those things. So figuring out what your promotion path has been and maybe what you'd like it to be. There may be some research involved, but if you're hitting those sort of bumps on the road, I want to make sure that you're noticing some of these themes. Limitations and barriers. So when I grew up with a family that from the age of 9 until I was 18 moved every 1.5 to 3 years. Then I joined the military and I went to boot camp, and then I went to school, and then I went to my duty station. And then when I was done with that contract, I moved to one state. And then, oh, by the way, 2 years later, I moved to a different state. And I was there for a short period of time. And then I came back to Pennsylvania. I had a rhythm of change in a very short period of time. So what I realized when I was in a job I really liked, every 1.5 to 2 years, I was getting this itch to change, to look for something more, to create something better that I didn't even know because I loved what I was doing and I was happy where I was with the team I was on. The limitations was internal. The barrier was internal. I had to ask myself, do I really want to change, or is this a brain pattern that's in my head that I need to acknowledge and make a choice about? Figuring out what are those things. Sometimes that's our attitude of, I'm a veteran, you should hire me. That sense of entitlement or ego that is blocking the relationship or the training that could be happening as you move towards that salary goal, role goal, team thing, whatever that looks like. We may have that internally. Personal preferences. I told you about the woman veteran who's now a military spouse that said, I still want to make my family a priority. but add value financially to my family. She knew what she wanted. She just didn't know if the opportunity existed. And it was a great conversation because there are other people that have common goals that I was able to refer to and say, you know what, I've had these people do it these ways. What resonates with you best? So she was able to negotiate her term. Length of time served. That sort of goes back to barrier for me, but for you, if they look and they see every year you're moving, have a reason for that. Get to know yourself a little bit more about why it is you've been there and what ownership you can take on that journey. Leisure go-tos. These are the things you do in your free time that you wouldn't mind getting paid for, but maybe you never thought about what would it take for you to get paid for doing things in the industry that you love, in the scene that you love, under the belief system that you appreciate and you gravitate towards in your leisure time. Think about it. And I've already covered unique thought rhythms in some of these, so I won't dig into that too deeply. But knowing that we have themes in our history that carry forth, even if we're not aware we're pushing them forward in our agenda and in the way we're going. We get to choose whether we continue to repeat those, strengthen them, or adjust course and leave them behind. So, Melinda, is there any questions or anything that I've missed so far before I go into this other example?
I did want to mention a comment that was made by Lisa in the chat box. She mentions that I work in higher ed. There's very limited opportunity for promotion, if any. They have no issue adding new responsibilities to your position. However, very rarely does it result in a promotion of title. So, and I've seen this challenge in other industries as well. And this one is a tough one. If you are having additional responsibilities and expectations added onto your plate, but you don't really see any advancement opportunities, what comments do you have about that, Crystal?
Absolutely. It's at one, I'm very familiar with that journey, and two, ironically, my husband is actually in a process of considering the same thing, where sometimes you're just in a space that is a small fishbowl that has an allocation for so many fish, and there isn't more money to be allocated, and there aren't more positions to jump into. We have to ask ourselves, is it more important to remain loyal to this particular fishbowl or this particular role? Or am I willing to consider what alternates are available that could potentially be just a little bit bigger tank? So maybe location is of priority and you absolutely need this particular role because it's so close to your home or it allows you other freedoms. Great. Maybe the benefits feel really important. I need these benefits so that, usually higher education in particular, is I want to pass these benefits to my kid and I'm not leaving until. Okay, so we need to know that. Is it the role that we're doing? Because usually if it's a small place that we had our job that we loved, but then we had all these other things, how much of our time is actually being allowed to be spent on the job that we love because we're pulled in so many different directions? If it's the role we love, it allows us to ask ourselves, are there other places with this role that may allow more opportunity? So breaking the one experienced big problem of, I'm in a space, there's limited room for promotion, I keep getting added tasks, and there's definitely no title or money being allocated. Think about the micro pieces of where you're at. Which ones are most important to you? And begin to ask yourself, would I be able to step out of my comfort zone in order to seek more of these things that are important to me, knowing that, yes, I will have to adjust with the things that have changed, commute time or location or company branding or whatever, because we can be loyal to something that doesn't give us what we need in this season. And it doesn't mean we wouldn't come back or we wouldn't still think highly of them. But we also have to know, just as when we all entered here, I said, you showed up for you. You showed up, and you're the only person that's going to show up for you. So you're the only person that's going to ask yourself, what's important to me? And am I willing to go through the exploratory process of what else is out there that aligns with what's important to me, so that I can see if it's going to fit my needs for this season of my life? And I hope that helps a little bit, not only for you, Lisa, for your question, but those who also have similar struggles that are either listening live or catching that YouTube replay. Any additions, Melinda?
At this time, no, but I really appreciate Lisa opening up and sharing that, because I don't think that's an uncommon struggle. So I'll keep watching the chat box and I'll let you know if there's more.
Thank you. I agree. That is such a common thing. And a big part of this is it leads right into this. How do we advocate for ourselves? Oftentimes we will lift a friend up and put them here. Look at this person. Hey, do you know so and so? Most of us will give to the degree that if a contact asks, hey, do you know someone? I have this need and I'm not really sure who's good for it. Do you know anybody? Essentially, how would you tell them about your friend that relates to their need, their opening that they need to fill? And is that going to be helpful for them and helpful for the person seeking? So step out of your shoes. Like if someone says, oh, hey, I have this business I'm opening up the street. They need someone who's really good and available during the day. It would be sort of a fill all position. They can adapt and adjust, but I need them to be really good at this. Do you know someone? Most of us will be like, you know what? I don't, but I'll ask my network. Or I do. I have this friend. They were actually able to do XYZ when they were at this company, and I still see them growing in their current role. They might be open to it. If that sounds like what you need, I'd be happy to do an introduction. It's easy to recommend a friend, but how does your friend help someone think of you in that same circumstance? So if someone asks your best friend, or even this person you just met at a networking meeting last week, hey, I have this need. I would like to find someone, maybe a veteran or a military spouse would be great, on this role. Do you know anyone? Do you have anyone that comes to mind? When someone thinks of you, are they going to be able to make that match and put you in the light that you need to be seen in order to push that introduction forward? I have this happening right now where I have a person who is in a particular role, and they have said, I love this role. I'm licensed in this role. I'm trained in this role. I make multiple six figures in this role. But what I'm seeing is the company's changing and it's not aligning with my values. And lately I've been picking up some more operational duties in addition to this role. And I would like to find a role that not only allows me to use my knowledge where I'm skilled and very proficient in, but taps into the operational side of my brain and my passion so that I can work with the teams and work with the people, but not lose too much of my salary. Because again, they're in the multiple six figures of this salary. And a little bit of background is my particular program in VetJobs for the Pittsburgh program is looking at livable wages, allowing folks to not come in at the bare bottom, but really hit a place where they can have a family, make decisions, be a part of leadership, and impact the community at large. So this is not an uncommon conversation, but he was able to clearly say, these are the skills I have. This is the role I love doing. This is sort of the salary range that I need to keep. If you hear something, please let me know. And so when I was networking, I was able to say to this particular contact of ours, one of the employers that that we ask questions for this field with, I said, hey, I have a veteran. He's really good at this part of this specialty. He's been doing a role like this in operations that he really likes, but he can't sacrifice on salary. Do you know anyone I can plug him into to network and connect with? He was able to tell his story so clearly and able for me to know how I could introduce him. And now they're like, hey, we have this role. We would like to meet him. Not saying we're going to hire him, not saying we're going to tell him to apply, but we want to meet him. We want to know him more. So are you telling your story in a way that highlights the skills you're great at, the roles you enjoy doing, sort of the range that you're at realistically? You can't go from 40K to 100K overnight. That's not realistic. However, certain industries want to see value in you. So how do you begin mapping out these themes? I started you with it doesn't have to be a resume, but you have to have a trackable piece of paper. A resume is a common term for that looks at your timeline, where you've been that matters to the goal. Don't worry, I'm getting to those of you who don't have a goal and don't know. But if you have a goal, what is the timeline that shows where you've been that matters to that goal? If I was trying to be a finance or a supply person, I wouldn't tell people that I worked with high-ranking executives in the military, global leaders, and did a lot of relational presentations and currying highly sensitive material. That's not the line I would use. What I would use is I was able to have a lot of volunteer responsibilities, over 500 hours in a 3-year period, that allowed me to learn what type of needs go to accounting materials, tracking events. I was also the office manager for all of the supplies needed for our department and the area. And I would highlight just on those collateral duties, just on those extra roles that pointed towards this particular goal. So the timeline is, where have you been that matters to the goal? You're quantifying and extracting relevant information. You're not telling about how fun this was and what this trip was like and when you did this. What is your timeline that matters to the goal? What is your skill growth? How have you expanded your ability to contribute to that goal? I told you, I've held the role, but took a PMP course. I've taken content marketing courses. I've taken different things that allow me to better understand where it is that I'm going, relevant to the goal. What types of skills can you develop that help you say, I've always been interested in this. I want to learn more. This is how I've been growing. You can highlight that in what you're doing. Quantified impacts made. Go back to the mom who was home with her kids, 4 of which were in sports. What we had to do was calculate over the last 14 years she's been at home. They all started about the age of 4. So she was able to calculate kid 1, since the age of 4, has been involved in at least 2 sports throughout the year, which averages to about 3 events per week. Well, kid 1 got older, kid 2 hit age 4, and since age 4 to this current age has been involved in 2 sports for about this much throughout the year. How many events and navigation? Essentially, each kid is a project that she's been navigating. We worked on quantifying the types of impacts made, budgets handled, percentage of increase, whether in participation or membership or donations or whatever the case may be. What type of impact have you made? Maybe 25% of the team used to show up to staff meetings and now it's at 90. That's a win. Quantify the things that you being there has changed the dynamics of that group or that business. And the goal. Think about the goal. How do I say this is what I'm trying to achieve? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you have no idea what the goal is. Start thinking about who are you and where you're at. I offer this. What do I do well? And how can I share that? I don't like the word weaknesses, but for understanding's sake, I put it there. But the things that should not be your primary KPI, your key performance indicators. I am a vision. I am a big picture. I am a strategist. I am not the look at every single line and put it into an alphabetized numerical folder that goes down by level. And then I do that every day. And every piece of my information goes down into these things. And I just love doing that. If I am stuck looking at file folders electronically or in person, that should not be my primary KPI because my ADD will just jump right off out the window and I will be chasing a squirrel in no time. Please know, where do you have room for improvement, which is different, or what should not be my primary role? Get to know where you want to stay and what don't you want to do. That will change everything. Have you ever seen this done before? Are you chasing a unicorn? I'm not saying it's not possible. I am the key unicorn chaser. I love when people are chasing a unicorn. But we also have to keep our feet on the ground and say, what have we seen done? What can be done well? What rhythms do those people have? How did they get there and what contributed to them being there? Look for mentors. Look for roles that are similar. Try to find ways to expand your understanding and take those opportunities to learn. You can search jobs all day on LinkedIn. You can find networking meetings on almost anything. Find some people, find some write-ups, find some things that help you learn about what it is you might like to be doing more of. If you would really like to be the administrative assistant for a traveling circus, you're going to have to do a little bit of digging, but you could probably get some additional information on how to pitch yourself as that person. I don't know, but I am absolutely sure it's doable. You just got to find and start digging on, this is what I do well. This is where I fall short. This is the subject I really like. How do I move closer to that? You won't get there immediately, but you're moving in that direction. There's always growth and progression. And then those blockers we perceive. Lisa asked that question that was just so good because it's like they're giving, but it's not tending to the needs that I have. Different title, increased salary, different options, and they're not bringing anyone else in to help. So what are the blockers we're perceiving? And how can we sort of like open that box and see what else is there that I need to be looking at? Again, what do I not want to be doing? And what am I assuming versus what I know to be true? Oh, well, this type of company doesn't hire these people. And this type of role absolutely needs you to do this. Sometimes the people putting together the job description really know exactly what they want. And sometimes they just needed to put something on paper so that they could start attracting applicants. There are two kinds of employers on ends of the spectrum, and there are some everywhere in between. Please know, am I assuming this or do I know it to be true? It's okay to check your beliefs. It is okay to figure out what is going on here and where do I fit. Maybe you're still not sure. I don't know what my goals are. Google jobs that need administrative assistant, jobs that involve circus clowns, jobs that involve being able to travel often everywhere. Start to see what you come up with and then continue to modify your search accordingly. Begin to layer them. Just as we looked at the themes that were coming out of your skill sets and your history, your journey, there are also themes that will start to emerge as you begin to explore all the crazy jobs that are out there. Another way to search what it is that you might want to be doing is pick 3 or 4 job titles that seem to appeal to you. Do random job searches in random cities and see what pops up, or job searches related to an industry and see what pops up. Look at those jobs and highlight the duties that you want to do daily. Because maybe you don't know the jobs that need XYZ skill or what to call it. Highlight the duties in other job postings that you would like to do and start searching for jobs that involve that. See what comes up. You'd be surprised that there are roles out there that fit you well that you could actually contend for. Mind you, the competition is fierce out there, so you want to be prepared. You want to tap into the resources that groups like ours at VRNE and VetJobs and Military Spouse Jobs and the National Guard Employment Network do, because we want to see you succeed. And we have resources to do it because we've been doing it a really long time. Ask loved ones what they'd always thought they'd see you doing. Maybe not your parents, because you know they have that disappointment tone in it. Well, I always thought you'd do this. Or, I really thought you'd be able to do this. When are you going to start this? And that might not align with what you want. But the people that you trust in your sphere that watch you function every day, what did they think they'd see you doing as a profession? Or if they could see you doing anything, this is what they think you would do. And maybe you don't care what you do. Maybe you just want a job that matters. What things do matter to you? My son has an obsession with garbage and people littering. An obsession. When we walk the streets, if there is garbage, we need to be prepared to pick it up. Thankfully, I've just learned to have a baggie and some gloves with me, because sometimes you just don't know what kind of litter people leave. He's obsessed. It's a mission that he has. Well, guess what I found out? When I listened to a briefing on the Space Force General or Lieutenant Colonel the other day, I'm sorry, I don't know his title, but he was the vice president of operations for something in the Space Force, and we were celebrating the Space Force birthday in Pittsburgh. So I'm listening to him, and one of the up and coming problems that our world is going to face is all the space junk cluttering up our ability to travel, inhabit, use these signals and all of this stuff. And I was like, man, my son being as obsessed with garbage and this being an up and coming need in the next 5 to 10 years, how crazy would it be if this was his specialty in recycling and reusing space junk that was all like trial and error things of our generations? Craziness. You just never know. But find something that you're passionate about in order to not only own the journey where you've been, but be able to point what it is you would like to accomplish in the future and why those marry together. If you can open a sentence and fill some of these blanks in, this might be a good starting point also. I tend to bring this to a group, to a role, to an organization, to a task. Hyper focus, lots of questions, multiple points of view, a very narrow point of view. What is it that you bring to the room when you show up? I love when I get to. If someone will give you an extra duty and it involves this, fill in the blank. I love when I get to, Well, people often comment on my ability to, or when I do, people often comment on my audience presence. I am smiling and cheering on the speaker at the front of the room every time, virtual or in person. I want them to succeed. That is the same anywhere I go, whether I'm in a one-to-one meeting, a small group setting, overseeing a team, or speaking to a global audience of strangers. I want you to succeed. People comment on my excitement for your success every time. So I know that about myself because people say it. What do you know about yourself that says, you know what, people notice this often? Maybe I want to keep that. Maybe I want to change that. But this is something I know. I'm owning my journey, not judging it, not evaluating it, but I'm owning it because now I'm owning the choices I'm moving forward with. People may label you as the one who, those words that are popping into your mind right now as I say this, those are the things I want you to think about. I'd love to take this, one of the trends you've identified, and use it for, fill it in. When I get this opportunity or assignment, I feel like I could stay here longer. Like the things that keep you at a job. Maybe they reward your performance. Maybe they have extra team initiatives. Maybe they go on retreats. Whatever it is, know this stuff about yourself, because when we tell our story well, we drive the narrative we want to be carried about us, from us, and into the places we're going. So you can own the value of your journey no matter where you've been, even if it's been really hard. I was sick for 10 whole years when I got out of the military, in and out of the VA hospital, because my body just decided it was not working. I own that because I learned a ton of stuff at that point. And and I know that life is hard, but there are resources out there. There are people who want you to succeed and celebrate those accomplishments. So Melinda mentioned this is going to be recorded on the Vet Jobs and Military Spouses YouTube channel. Tell a friend, get them working on their growth. You want to be the one that continues to lift others up. There's learning that never stops. The VRNE has a whole pathway of career readiness that if you have that service connection and you can connect with, you can move forward. Nick, if you want to put the link to that in the comment on how they get involved and start asking about benefits and eligibility and those types of things, I know he has a place to send you that helps you learn. Our training department is insane. And like I said, competition is fierce. Just this week, in the year 2023, the training department has had over 4,000 completions of training by nearly, I think it was over 1,500 individuals. People are busting their tail to be competitive, relevant, and getting their goals met. I want you to be part of that group. Tap into those trainings and tell us your story. Connect with us on LinkedIn. I'm going to point you back. These are all our LinkedIn profile pictures, so we're going to be easy to find. Connect with us on LinkedIn and ask us, what story are we telling with this profile page? What are you seeing that I don't see that either is aligned with the story you want to be telling or maybe needs a little tweaking? I know Heather, my career specialist, she works with folks on their LinkedIn profile on the regular. That's one of the services of career readiness that our career specialists do. And working with them is a huge benefit because they're giving you feedback no one else is giving you. You need to know that. And I know Nick and his team walk you through a host of different pieces in your journey. So please do not forget that we are here to help you, and we are glad that you came. But again, we would not be here if it weren't for Melinda. I am so glad that you are here, that you have so many resources available to these attendees. But the reality is, we have a story that we're telling, whether we know we are or not. And is it saying what you want it to? I want to make sure that you are a part of that process and not just letting it happen.
I just wanted to add that I've included the link for vetjobs.org/training. And if you explore that training page, you will see all of the different options we have available. One thing I do want to point out, and this goes back to the question that Lisa, or the comment that Lisa made, on our IBM Skills Build platform, we have a tool called My Inner Genius. It's actually an assessment tool, and I found it to be a pretty comprehensive assessment. It not only identifies the types of industries or job functions might fit with your personality and the way you operate, but it can also point you to some of the training and credentials that you might benefit you in your job search. So I think that's an important piece to mention. The other thing, Crystal, you talked about identifying what your needs are, what type of a direction you should go in, and as you're determining whether the current role you're in is a good fit for you or you need to explore other options. That's something we talk about in our job search class, is how to create a job search plan. And part of that is identifying what your needs are and what your wants are in your job search. And then that helps you narrow down not just the role you want, but your job function. We try to talk about job functions in our training classes because roles can have or functions can have different names in different companies, but it's basically the same role. So you have to figure out, what are you good at, what is the function that you want to pursue and prepare yourself for, and then build your self marketing tools, which is your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, your networking tools. Those are all about self marketing and moving you towards that job function that is a good fit for your skills, your qualifications, and then all of those credentials that you're working on. So all of those pieces are part of that. We do have a question here from Doug. It says, I have asked about this through the caregiver program over a year ago and was never given information if I was eligible. Doug, can you give me just a little bit more information about what you're specifically asking about? Okay, let's see. Looks like he was directing that to Nicholas. For the vocational rehab? Okay, so Doug, are you part of the caregiver program and you're trying to access? Okay, so Nicholas is going to connect up with him. Okay, good. Perfect. We don't want anybody to leave our session today not being comfortable enough to reach out to the people who are here with us today and ask additional questions. Or if they would like to ask those questions here, we want you to feel free to be able to do that. We don't want anybody leaving us wanting. Okay? Perfect. Okay, good. Doug's going to connect up with Nicholas to get more information. So, does anybody have anything else that they would like more information about? If Crystal talked about something in her presentation that you would like a little bit more information, now's your chance. Save rounds.
And please feel free to reach out if this is something you want to dig in further. Lisa, I love to talk about unicorns with you. I want to make sure that we're walking through this process in a way that you are cared for. As Melinda said, we don't want you to leave wanting. And if there's a resource that you'd like to know more about, please connect with us. Feel free to message us on LinkedIn. Nick has put the information for VRNE vocational rehab link in our chat, but you can also go and sign up as a job seeker to be eligible on the VetJobs and Military Spouse Jobs site, as well as the training page. If you want to sign up for particular trainings that are coming up, you can go straight into that, and those are available to you as well. I never knew that all of this was available, that there wasn't stipulations of you had to be combat associated, you had to have a certain rank, you must retire, you must be at a certain service connection. Even the spouses, just knowing that they can come in and they are greeted with open arms. I never knew that any of this was available. And that's why I do what I do, is because my journey didn't tell me any of that until after the fact. I had already survived so many wall hittings. And now it's like, I want everybody to know. Do you know? Can you tell a friend? You never know who's struggling behind closed doors or desperately wants to hit that next level and hasn't met the person that's going to show them that. That's why we do what we do. We want you to be able to know that you're welcome here, and we want to cheer you on.
Exactly. Exactly. If nobody has any questions or comments, I am going to go ahead and close the session. I do invite you, if you have any questions for me and the training department, I have put my email address in the chat box, and the photo that Crystal shared in the presentation is also my LinkedIn profile photo. So please reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to provide additional information about what I do. I love what I do with our candidates in the training department. So thank you for today. Thank you, Crystal, for everything that you shared with us today. I found it very enlightening. When I do end the session, if you want to leave Air Meets, all you have to do is close the tab and you're all done. And look for this video to pop up on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel, you can search VetJobs, military spouse jobs, and you will find all of the other videos that we have in our library available as well. So look for this video to pop up on there probably in the next week or so. So thank you again for being with us today. And I look forward to doing these types of Air Meets presentations with Crystal in the future and with other members of our team in the future. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.